What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, I'm going to be I'm getting back into the religion thing. I'm going to try to get to where I do at least one of these a week. It's been like 2 weeks since I did the video on hell, and uh, I meant to do one last week, but I think I kind of got myself off because that's where I started doing the um movie and TV review stuff, which I have not done this week. Um, and so it kind of threw me off as far as doing that. Anyways, but I'm gonna try to get to where I'm trying to get myself set up to where I'm like doing um set things every week, like certain days, like updating politics, uh, uh, news and stuff like that, or world news or whatever, once or twice a week, like every other day or something like this week I did basically Wednesday and today, um, and then having one day, which I'm also doing this video, of course, today, which is Friday. But and then because I've also got to do a couple of days a week on my JMD channel, uh, music and stuff like that. So I'm trying to, and then of course also I've got to do video for JMDPLAY. So I'm trying to get to where I'm like doing every other day. I'm jumping between channels, um, putting out content. But I want, as far as the religion stuff, politics is probably going to take center stage for the most part on this channel. But I wanted to do something on religion at least once a week, one video at least. Um, you know, uh, my understanding and opinion or idea about a certain particular subject or something in religion or whatever. Um, at least once a week. And then so that's the idea. We're going to talk today, and today we're talking, since in lieu of talking about hell previously, we are going to, in this video, talk about Satan. Um, the the supreme ruler of hell. Um, so now, but before we do that, if you're liking this content and stuff that's being done on this channel, um, whatever your views are for the politics or whatever, or even your views on religion, or whatever we talk about on here. If you're liking the content, even if it's to hate like it, um, it's very much appreciated. And because, like I said, the idea around this channel is to be engaging in different views, whatever those views are, and trying to get an understanding of each other. Like you understand, like hoping that I can explain things in a way, whatever I'm talking about, in a way that uh, you hopefully you can go away from it thinking, okay, like I can see his point, even if I don't agree with it. I can see his point or whatever. Um, and then maybe you can even engage in that and give your point, and then we can, or whatever, or even anybody else that might comment, give your points or whatever. You just have a wholesome discussion where we can be respectful, and um, anyway. So if you're liking this content, please consider subscribing. That's the helps probably the most of anything, and likes, shares, things like that. Subscribes and likes really is the biggest, I think, for the most part. Feedback also helps a good bit. Um, I'm not sure how much sharing really does for the algorithm. I mean, I'm sure it does, but anyways, and then of course, check out my other channels and stuff. Consider subscribing to those as well. If you can check out videos, see if you like what's going on there too. It helps me out as well. Like, share, comment on those as well. Check out Discord. Um, I do need to get a little bit more active on Discord. I get on there I get on there. I have only been getting on there maybe once a week, but I need to get on there a little bit more, especially and I would get on there way more if there was more people like on there. But um, if you like to do like a one-time donation or something, be like, hey, let me just pop $1 or something to them, whatever, even if it's a $8. Do that there. And then of course right above is the Patreon if you want to check that out. And it's $3 a month there. So, going on, let's get into this subject of Satan. So, like I said, in lieu of hell, um, we and of course, you know, disclaimers of all. I'm not religious. I did grow up, in religion, Christianity, particularly Southern Baptist. I'm from Mississippi, so yeah. Um, so I was pretty much surrounded in all that. So I grew up in that up until about 25, and then I little by little doing research and about history and origins of Christianity and expanding my understanding of all those things. And then of course into other like um, religions and mythologies and stuff like that. I ultimately come to the over time to the point where I just couldn't believe it anymore. So I walked away. The big split happened over a year, I guess, roughly. I guess it was, yeah, roughly about a year, where I just like after a year of all that, goodness gracious, basically making the hard like decision on me, like, okay, yeah, I don't believe this anymore. And then from there it was just, I went through all the different stages of, anger and frustration and annoyance and trying to, go against it and bash against all this kind of stuff, to the point where I eventually just got to where I was just calm and like let people be and whatnot. But then over time, it was still like I need to learn more about this. Though I want to learn more. I want to learn more. It became it's become a little bit of an obsession. Not like crazy, but I do enjoy learning and hearing about history and the academics and uh, of religion, different religions and everything, mythologies and stuff, practices of ancient times and all this stuff, even to archaeological things. And like I learned to love to learn all that. And I'm not like, of any academic level, not even close. It's even hard sometimes to retain out. It takes me hearing some things several times before I really can solidly obtain, even how I want to. I could I could even speak on something, but it's like I have the knowledge and thought here, but really being able to, and I might not really even be. Some things I still might not have the ability to completely explain how I feel and think about it. But um, but yeah, Satan. So of course, so I don't believe in hell. Clearly, that's what was the, I pretty much ultimately come to it. In the first video. In that video was explaining why, though, explaining how I felt it, you know, um, how I think it's interpreted wrong by most Christians, and how that became, and then, but ultimately, just that I just don't believe it. Period. So yes, I also, as far as the just quick answer to Satan, I don't believe in Satan either. But how that come about, like how why is it that he's a figure? Why is it that he's, come about? How did he come about? And all this kind of things is where I'm kind of want to play and go with that. So, one of the in from all the things that I've listened to and read and researched in, my general understanding, and this, like I said, this is not. I'm not technical on stories or timeline through the Bible, or even can even like tell you what verses or anything like that's I can't do that. But my general understanding is it starts out, God has his and in this case, Yahweh or whatever has his council of angels, heavenly beings, that he kind of associates to and works with, as far as like things to do with earth and all that kind of, like with the people, all that kind and then so you basically have Satan or Satan or whatever come into the play into the Old Testament, where he's basically like he's a part of this council. I guess you could argue that this is where the what's associated to the Michael, which is oftentimes what you hear in evangelical churches, and the idea of Michael falling and the archangel and becoming, but ultimately becoming Satan and all that kind of stuff. But he's basically a part of the council, and but God ultimately like uses him in a way that uses him in a way where he's assigning him things to do on earth that really pertain to things of evil, things of mischief, and whatever. Like that's his whole. He's like he's the one that works and does all that kinds of things, yeah, or like delivering for the one that delivers for for somebody to attack somebody else or something like that. Like that's the idea, or maybe anyways. Ultimately, it comes down to where, like in the story of I think it's Moab, right? Where that's like the ultimate test. It's oftentimes played in the church as like this ultimate test of that God put on him to tempt him into losing, like taking everything from him. But he's still, like, it's often taught, God took everything from him and left him with nothing, but he still stayed strong in his faith and his love, and he didn't blame God and all this kind of stuff. And then ultimately God, saw that, and then he rewarded him by giving him everything back tenfold. And that's the reason why you should, stay faithful, even in the worst of times, even when you think God's just taking everything from you and he's just beating down on you. You should still keep your faith, because he's got this ultimate plan to, to bring you back up and lift you back up if you will stay with that, right? Just ignore the fact that he decided to just, put you at your absolute worst, put you down on the ground and take everything from you, your wife, kids, all your belongings, everything, like, the idea that he would just do that to you, as a test, right? But actually, it was Satan that he sent to do that, to do those things. It was a bet between him and Satan, a Satan, this member of the heavenly council, viewed as angels. You could argue it was also just a council of gods, in a more poly religious way. But it was a bet between them, like that you know, like basically Satan was like, if you take, I bet that if you take everything from him, he's going to curse you, and he's gonna hate you, and blah 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 blah. And God's like, no, he's not. He's going to love me, and blah blah blah. And so it's basically a bet between them two that that would happen. So he's like, I tell you what, you go down there. I want you to to take everything from him, kill his wife, his kids, everything, whatever. Take all his belongings from him, and then just do your thing, to him. And then we'll see what happens. So that's what he did. He came down there, did everything, took everything from him, blah blah blah. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to get technical with all the details, but that's we know that everything was taken from him. It was done by him, and then after eventually, God was like, okay, never, he's done his thing. I win, haha. Now let's give him everything back. And so he was giving everything back. But ultimately, this was a test. And the way I feel about it, and afterwards, after that point, it's like little by little throughout the rest of the Old Testament, it's as if Satan little by little is kind of removed from that role to some degree. Like it's almost like this. For me, it feels like if we're taking that like to its point, to where eventually, he becomes Satan, the ruler of hell, or whatever. And we're thinking of this as like a progressive story that starts at an old point, an old time, ancient times, and then little by little, this story evolves and changes through civilization to civilization, or through groups of people to groups of people, or it's changed along the way in the writings and in the way stories are told, or the way stories are changed, which we understand and know that's a lot that happened, and how a lot of things happen in the Bible, and how the things were written. Those stories were passed along, most of it orally and whatnot, till it was put down, those oral traditions and whatnot. And we know how oral traditions change and alter the more we talk about, we all have done the thing where you're in the circle and you start with saying one thing to one, and by the time it gets back around to you, it's completely different, or details have changed, the meaning of it has changed, or whatnot. They understand that. And I feel like that's kind of the story evolved eventually to where later church or early church fathers and stuff eventually had to create and give this like ultimate evil, the creation of hell and everything like that. It's got to have a ruler, So we given this, we see this, part of the council of God that is, he's being sent down to do the evil works and things like that. So naturally he would become, like, I feel like that's what happened. Naturally he became the easy story to place, ruler, antagonist, or whatever, to put in hell. So I feel like that's how the story went, and why it eventually mimicked to, Michael. He wanted to take over heaven, wanted to take God's reign, but God's all powerful, and he cast him out, and he winds up in, becoming Satan, becoming Lucifer, all this kind of shit, and then, he works over the earth and all this stuff, and then, but ultimately he's going to be cast into hell, and he's going to become the ruler of hell. That's going to be his eternal punishment. And this is, where I feel like that all plays in, that I feel like the idea of you know, I feel like if ultimately if this you could even if this was all real, you know, if I grant you that that's all real, I would think, and the way it would appear to me is like it's like he over time, if we're going with even like, you know, if I was to take, you know, the story of Michael and the whole thing of him wanting to take over, blah blah blah, like I feel like it would be like the because he was constantly being done put he was a part of this council, he was a part of heaven, but he was constantly being like his job was to do the evil works. um because I mean, it's understand that God created everything, so he obviously, you know, created good and evil. He's controlled over all of it. He controls evil. So and Satan is like his muse into for doing those evil things. And so it's like, you know, I could see where if that was, say that that's the real case, I could see where you ultimately be like, man, I'm sick and tired. At some point, you know, it's like, I'm sick and tired of doing all this bad shit, man. I'd rather do, you know, other things, and maybe, you know, I get tired of doing this. I'm just his evil doer or whatever. And these people praise him and they're not realizing, and they hate me, but they're not realizing that he's the one sending me to do this shit and blah blah blah, you know. um I feel like, you know, you could see where that would ultimately, he'd get annoyed with that and be like, look, you know, uh, people need to realize that he's not that good of a god and blah blah blah. He's doing all these evil things too. But I can see where that would go, and you know, he would try to make an attempt to take over or to take him out. Wouldn't necessarily take over him, but just take him out. But ultimately, he can't do it, and he gets, you know, banished from heaven, from the council, and so then he's a part of the world and whatnot. Like I could see that story evolving, and or even if it was real, like I said, those ideas happening, um and ultimately, you know, that becoming the story, and he eventually you know, takes over hell. And this wraps all around to all the ideas through, even through your mythologies of, you know, even like Greek mythology with Zeus and Hades, and you know, them actually being brothers, and you know, all this kind of like, you know, and it's just like that's the roles that are being played. They have those the roles that are being assigned to them. Zeus killed his father, became, you know, the ultimate, you know, ruler of everything. Um, and then, you know, whatnot, whatnot. And you know, he's got the power. Nobody crosses him, you know, but his power is ultimately held by the people and their beliefs in him, and worshiping him and all that kind of shit. I mean, you know, this is all gods are that way. But um and then at some point, whenever the uh Genesis is written in the Garden of Eden and everything, somehow eventually the the role of the serpent turns into, you know, being Satan as well. Although I don't agree and don't believe that that was the original intent for that story. Let's say that it was written in, you know, um, in trying to truly represent some idea of creation. I don't think that's what it represented. Um, because for one, when it was written, the concept of hell, the concept of an evil like Satan being or whatever, wasn't really a thing. Like it wasn't really even a concept back in the time, you know, that it uh, is thought to have been written, from my understanding. And things that were written around that time, same thing. Like it just, that wasn't a idea in that early of ancient society. Um, of like this, of especially not of hell, and not really of like an evil being. That just wasn't really a thing. And that's the reason why I think, there's, of course, the Orthodox and evangelistic, you know, all the main creed of Christianity ultimately has come to that conclusion, or that's how they interpret it, is God in the Garden of Eden, God had, he had Adam and Eve. They were his, creations, and then the serpent come along, which was Satan trying to be devious to God, and enlighten them to their sinful nature. Um, and so then God had no choice but to cast them out, because they did not stay true to, trusting him and doing what he said. They were disobedient, right? But there was an early sect of Christianity, your Gnostics and stuff like that, who actually, which eventually, proto-Orthodox and Orthodox, deemed them as heretical, and so they wind up, their authoritative, they lost any kind of authoritative, like, strength in the Christian progression. But their idea and thoughts was that, well, actually, the Creator God, or Yahweh, was not really the all high God. He was a lesser God that created the earth for his own, and creation people for his own, like, amusement, or for his own, like, just, praise or whatever. And that the serpent was actually the high God, the upper God, that was trying to basically give Adam and Eve the truth, right? Like, he wanted them to realize that this lesser God, this lower, creator, had manipulated them and was lying to them, and that there was more to, there was more to life, there was more to the earth, there was more to everything than what they were being told. There was something outside of that garden, other stuff to their reality. And, it's like, look, if you want to really learn and really want to know knowledge, the knowledge of the gods, then eat from this tree. This is the tree of knowledge. So, we know the story. Eve ate the apple or fruit of the tree, and gained knowledge, then got Adam to do so. And so then they have the knowledge of the gods. They have the knowledge of their bodies, the sexuality, and everything else, like, what they their of life, and what they could do, whatever. And and the knowledge of way reality was, as far as, the gods and everything. And then ultimately there was also, there's technically something like two trees. There's also the tree of you have the tree of knowledge, and then the tree of life, which is like immortality. So really, the Creator God cast them out because he didn't want them to then gain immortality. That was also somewhere in there. I don't know if it's completely Gnostics, but the idea is, like, my understanding or thought is that, with all of that, there's this other train of thought that, that the serpent was there to give them knowledge, to give them the truth. He was the all high God, giving them the truth of this lesser God, who was being looked at as he was playing with them. He was lying to them. And so then They know the truth now. He even encouraged them uh, to, to eat from the tree of life and mortality. But the creator of God kicked them out of Eden so that they wouldn't do that, so they wouldn't become immortal, and would stay like, his subjects. And then, of course, asked them to, procreate and, grow the population, spread from there, punish them for, not staying true to him and whatnot. And, um, so that he would have more subjects and eventually would have, like this. That's the idea. Now I can get. The next video I do is going to be on God, and I'm gonna go deeper into all that, like what I think from there the God idea and reason was. But as a story, um, but yeah. So I don't feel like I don't think even looking at the Adam and Eve story, like that rings to me like, yeah, I mean that seems like a viable story too. That means like a viable idea. I mean, you already have, early ancient times with mythologies and stuff where theistic like religions and beliefs, which arguably even were in the Old Testament, even in that time, before eventually it become, the shift to monotheism eventually happened, uh, part halfway through the Old Testament time, and then whatever. Um, and like I said, I'm not technical and all that, but I'm just saying it eventually happened. But that, that there's the idea of multiple gods and different layers of gods, and even like you say, you look at all your mythologies, you have your, different gods, brothers and sisters, and all this kind of stuff, and there's even a gods before them and gods for that. Zeus took out his father, which or just and or whatnot, and but they were the Olympian gods before the Olympian gods, or the Titan gods. For the Titan gods was like the all, high mighty, uh, creator of everything God, like. So there's like this idea that there's layers of gods and stuff, and you can see where, a creator God, somebody who's just creating something, um, for his own amusement, uh, or for his own, like I said, for whatever the case, he's bored or whatnot. It's like, what? How about I create some stuff I can, you know, play with, and I can rule over and feel important and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, uh, and then of course, the higher guy's like, what is this doofus doing? And he's lying to him too. Well, shit. Let me go down here. He thinks he's gonna rule over something. Let me show him what it's really like. So he's like, go down there. Hey, this guy's lying to you, right? He told you couldn't eat from that. Yes, you can. There's nothing keeping you from doing that. Go do it. He's like, then you'll have knowledge. I'm telling you the truth, all right? You're going to have the true knowledge of what's really going on. You realize that he's actually just lying to you. I can see that. I can see that as a story. I can see that as an idea, a concept that, and, it kind of makes sense. If you're not, especially if you're not really thinking in the idea of evil, hell, all this kind of stuff, like, it's very simple idea, and I feel like that it's just very plausible for it to be something like that. Of course, that's me, taking all these different stories and concepts, even in early Christianity, and like playing with it and being like, from my point of view of being outside of religion, anyways. Like, I don't have a problem humoring it. But even thinking about it in like an early Christian text, or period, I could see where that, these different ideas were roaming around. There were so many different ideas of where, what these stories meant, and what these, the Christianity, it wasn't just like this one belief that everybody believed. There was, or one idea, or one, uh, everybody took the same idea from the scriptures or whatever the case. Like, everybody looked at them and read them differently and thought differently, and that's reason. It's just like we have so many different denominations now. There, even back then in the early, it's basically like the different denominations then. It's just ultimately a few denominations wind up coming out on top as far as eventually having the power and strength and money and influence to ultimately become the orthodox. What became orthodox and what became the foundation of the religion going forward. But that doesn't necessarily, discount just because one wind up with the more power and the more, influence and authoritative, which is, man-made anyways. To have, where you had people, coming together and declaring, oh, well, yeah, this belief is right. This translation is right. That one's not. And all these all these people had different versions of these different books. It's not like the whole Bible was created and going around, after Jesus' time. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years later before, the Bible as we know it now, or well, not even really as we know it now, but, it was compiled together and the canon started to being canonized. I mean, that took a while too. So there was fragments and different versions of books and letters and writings, whatever, people had different versions of them. And that was happening for a while, and they would believe things off of those particular versions. And then we even understand the way we know them now. A lot of like the Gospels and whatnot are a lot of stuff there was some stuff that was added to them after the fact. There's even thought that some, couple of chapters here or whatever, certain sections were not original to that, that they were more or less added later on, to either help explain something or to change or try to create a certain image or agenda for the Orthodox going forward or whatever. Like, it was different. Anyways, getting back to Satan though. So yeah, I think that was very possible. I think Satan was just like I said, just like hell was a creation of trying to explain evil, trying to give some sort of identity to evil things in the world. And hell was created for that too. Naturally, you need a ruler for it. If there's a hell, then there's somebody that's over it, just like heaven. Cast them down, whatnot. But like the one thing that I even humored this even when I was a Christian, even when I was like a teenager, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I would often, well, not often, but I did, even if it's the slightest bit, question, what if, let's just flip this, what if we actually are worshiping the wrong guy? What if what we think of God is actually Satan, and what we think of Satan is actually God? Like, I humored that. What would be the consequences of that if we really were, especially once I realized that there, even at a young age, I understood that there were lots of different religions, there were lots of different versions of God. Yeah, ultimately ours, the evangelical Christian, God was supposed to be the only true God, right? That's what we're taught and learned. But, it's like, okay, yeah, we're supposed to be the true God. But, I mean, there are different ones. People believe different gods. What if we really are worshiping the wrong one. You know, maybe what if even within our religion we actually have it flipped? Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, if we're actually supposed to be worshiping what we are considering Satan, but maybe God's actually manipulated us. What if, stick with me here, the whole story of Michael being banished, you know, trying to take over the take over the throne and take God out. God ultimately takes him out, casts him out of heaven. He falls to the earth. He becomes, you know, evil on earth. He's the realm of, you know, to walk the earth and create chaos and all this kind of stuff. And then ultimately becomes, you know, cast into hell, into the burning flames to become Satan and whatnot. But I mean, let's just, what if, stick with me, what if, and I thought this, what if he actually did win? What if Michael actually did win? And he did take over heaven, but we don't know it. What if that was the big change between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and how God suddenly flips from being what one could consider a complete asshole, you know, ordering people to kill other people and sacrifice and all this stuff. Like, what if, you know, the flip between that and the New Testament, where suddenly God's this loving, you know, wholesome God that's like a father and, you know, just wants the best for us. He sends his son, or a representation of himself, to be the ultimate sacrifice, so we're no longer doing these other sacrifices to talk to him and communicate with him and be with him in heaven and all this. Like, what if this was all actually Michael's change? What if he did take over heaven? What if he did defeat God, the creator God, the God of the Old Testament? What if he did take him out? And the creator God was the one that was cast out of heaven. And then he took over the throne. And he actually was like, because remember when I go back to, you know, Satan, you know, getting frustrated, maybe he actually got annoyed with constantly being the one sent down to do all the evil shit, while the other one got the, you know, praise for fixing, you know, for suddenly, oh, I'm giving you everything back and you praise me because I'm giving you these things, but I'm going to keep sending this guy. What if you got annoyed with it? And that ultimately was like, I've got to take this guy out. These people just don't realize. I know how they should be treated. And he takes them out. Casts them out of heaven. And then he takes over the throne and starts actually, you know, teaching and commending for people to love each other and all this kind of shit. You know, we don't have to have this evil, you know, anger and whatnot, blah, blah. But then things eventually just wind up out of control as it is. Like the human nature that the original God created and manifested in our DNA just ultimately has just ruined us. And, you know, it's because it seems like at this point, you know, where we had constant contact with God back in the Old Testament, suddenly nowadays we just don't really seem to have any true contact with him. Right? I mean, it's not like he's coming down here revealing himself or, you know, giving orders for this and that. I mean, people act like they are, but I mean, let's be real here. So maybe, you know, it comes more across like he just sort of just threw up his hands like, whatever, y'all do your shit. I gotta take a vacation. Because maybe he's like, man, I've tried. I sent this person, told them to love, told them to, you know, be kind to one another and all this kind of shit. But ultimately, they just went right back to being how they were. Fuck it. Like, there's nothing I can do. I tried. Or maybe he's still thinking eventually it would happen, but wasn't going to happen. You know, whatever. I'm just saying, like, humor that for a second. Think about that. What if that really is actually what happened? What if we really are? Of course, that story and version goes against, my argument of we're worshiping the wrong one. But what we are actually thinking, Satan is actually the original God. I mean, it kind of does still play, and what we are considering Satan, or what we consider God, is actually what we actually think of as Satan. Like, it's just a flip role. I mean, I'm just saying. Like, it's interesting to think about. It's interesting to ponder, and in humor, and like, what if that really is the case? You know, um, I think I wind up actually going into my God idea before, even though I was supposed to do it in another video. But this is also in turn for Satan, so I am in the same video. Uh, I'm just saying, like, so it's these concepts and these thoughts. For me, it's understood that Satan was a creation of humans. It was a creation of early church, trying to give something, because like I said in the hell video, Jesus didn't actually teach of some eternal abyss where you go and burn forever for eternity and whatnot and suffer. He taught of you perishing. When you die, you perish. When you die, you either go to heaven or you perish. Like, there's either eternal life or there's not eternal life. Not eternal life in this place or eternal life in this place. Like, that's not what he taught. Hell and Satan, as it is known today, was created after the fact. It wasn't really even Jesus' teachings. So, I mean, Jesus did teach about evil, but it wasn't in the light of there being a hell, of there being an eternal place where you go and burn. That wasn't the way he taught it, or that there was an evil deity running over this hell. That wasn't the way it. So even if I were to be a Christian, I actually shouldn't believe in hell, and I shouldn't believe in Satan. Not in the way it's considered now, the way it's taught now, the way it's thought of now. I mean, I could think of, ultimately, there's, somebody who may be, or if anything, there's maybe a representation of evil that is on the earth, that is, doing this little mischievous shit and influencing evil, but not that, but that's like an eternal being that's just here until the grand coming of Jesus again, or God again, is what Jesus thought. Jesus didn't think he was returning. He didn't think of himself as the Savior. He didn't think of himself as God's Son in the way that we, like, the way Christians do now. So it'd be that, ultimately there was going to be a new, which all plays into, there was going to be a new Israel. There was going to be a new, heaven on earth. It's going to be, or earth was going to be evolved and changed into a greater place where only the, redeemable would then live. Like, the earth was going to be heaven. It really wasn't even a heavenly realm per se. Earth was going to be heaven. Just different. And the evil would no longer exist. But yeah, no, I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in hell or any of that, because I think it was just made up ultimately. But like I said, it's like to ponder and play with stories of old and ideas and stuff from early church or even ancient times, even playing it along with the idea of, like, there could have been influence from earlier, oral traditions or earlier religions, like mythologies like Greek or Egyptian or whatever, different beliefs that were all around the area in that time, that, ultimately every one of them were influenced by each other. And so, but yeah, so that's my talk on Satan. And in my next video, I will be talking about God, kind of getting specific and like expanding on those ideas of creation, in the, like I talked about the Garden of Eden, but from the God perspective, and how I think that, and even going to play around with that a little bit on where I think that actually went. And we'll probably even come back to the whole flipper role thing, but more on the God perspective there too. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I got something. Maybe, you probably completely disagree. I'm sure there's some of you who completely disagree and think that I'm being blasphemous and thinking I'm cuckoo, losing my shit. But for those of you who have a little bit more of an open mind and can play and humor some of that, yeah, I think you can. I think it's easy, and it's something to if anything, like I've told people in the past, well, since I've become in the atheist sort of umbrella, whatever, since I walked away from religion, that when I discuss things with you, I either will do really one of two things. I'll either talk to you, or like you'll either take from it that you actually are questioning your religion now and want to do research and may come to whatever decision. You're either going to strengthen yourself in that research, or you're going to go one way or the other, or ultimately I'm going to strengthen you right off the bat, because you're going to be so engaged to go against me that you're going to strengthen your positions, and which will make you either just become a better Christian, which you ultimately, either way, hopefully you would, but, or like I said, devil and devil, whatever. In my sort of dabble, that's what I was looking for. Dabble in my realm. Anyways, yeah, but yeah, just you can play around with it and think, hey, what if that really is true, or what if, or not true, but what if that is a possibility, make you even do some more research and look at it and think about it or whatever, contemplate it some. May even alter a little bit of your thoughts on certain hardcore things, give you a little bit more of an open mind and understanding or something for yourself, not for like everybody, not even for me, but just, whatever. Anyway, thank you. I'm just rambling now. I'm just talking. I don't know. That's kind of, I mean, these videos, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be all technical and like academic or anything. It's like me just playing around with, me explaining my thoughts on it, and then giving you an idea of playing around with different thoughts on it. And, but ultimately, yeah, I don't believe it because of many of those things. So anyways, thank you very much for joining me. If you like this content, like, subscribe, give me a comment and let me know what you think. If I'm cuckoo, fine. That's fine. If I've got maybe a point, or at least, like, you're in, humoring the idea of humoring it. Or am I like, completely, if you're like completely on board with me, and think that everything is plausible or possible, I guess, more rather. Anyways, thank you very much, and until next time, peace, love, and later. I'm out.